In our last video, we were looking at all of the different app types, and we said that in this video, we were going to give you a decision tree to go through. We attempted that, and guess what? A decision tree is not actually possible. It's way too large, and there are way too many decisions. So instead, we built an agent to help us with that. So what we're going to show you in this video is how you can discuss these different concepts with an agent, get information back, and really what that conversation looks like as to which thing should I choose and when should I choose it.
Let's begin then. So we've got this wonderful agent that's going to help us make these decisions. If we discuss a few options or a few scenarios here, we can showcase the power of this agent. Yeah, should we jump into a scenario, Charles?
Yeah, we've got some demo scenarios in front of us. We could choose one of those, or we can just start typing to the agent. So it's an actual conversation that we can have with it. Which would you prefer to go down, Josh?
Should we try a demo scenario first?
So for our first demo scenario, let's just pick the first one, field workers plus back office. So this is a company that has around 150 field engineers who visit customer sites to carry out inspections and log job reports. They need to capture photos, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, sometimes with no internet connection. Back in the office, they have a team of managers who need to review submitted reports, assign follow-up tasks, and track job status, and they have perhaps premium licenses for everyone. Well, Josh, I feel like this is probably a no-brainer, but maybe there's a bit of nuance. What do you think?
Yeah, and this is a really common scenario, isn't it? One that I've seen over and over again, and one that is cookie cutter for Power Apps. And we can see there that the AI is already recommending some scenarios, but in my head, I'm thinking if they've got Power Apps Premium, which they do for everyone, then we're looking at Dataverse backend with probably something like a Canvas app, although I'm cheating a little bit because it says it there already, but Canvas app for the field engineers and probably a model-driven app for the back office staff. It's going to give the best flexibility, the best of both worlds. And yeah, the Canvas app capturing the requirements of offline mode, that kind of stuff as well, photo capturing. It feels very native. Of course, there are so many other considerations there with things like code apps on the table as well. The native mobile support isn't there at the minute. You could technically use it in a web browser, for example. So not the only option to consider, but I still think a Canvas app in this scenario is probably still the best option at the minute, in my opinion. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree with that. And I just can't wait for code apps to reach that feature parity where it can be the thing that we use instead of a Canvas app. So let's scroll down a bit and let's see. So it agrees with you, model-driven app for the office managers. But then we've got another part a bit further down, optional additions worth considering. So Power Automate for the notifications. I think, again, that's kind of a no-brainer, isn't it? You get those things all together. Canvas apps, model-driven apps, and Power Automate, all as a nice package. And then it's also saying Copilot Studio, but of course there's an additional cost for that. So why Copilot Studio? Well, it's saying in the manager app, so the model-driven app, that they might want to be able to ask questions. Now, this is something where I think we need to tweak our prompt actually, because you can ask these questions with the native Copilot control in a model-driven app now. And if we look at the licensing summary, it's all included with premium, isn't it? So that's nice and easy. And then we'll go down a bit more and we've got one thing to check. So engineers submitting photos will consume Dataverse file capacity. That's a really good point and something that people might miss. So yeah, maybe we might want to think about storing those photos in SharePoint if the sensitivity of the data is not very high, or if it's more sensitive, if we need to keep those photos really secure, then maybe we'd be looking at Azure Blob storage.
Yeah, I think that's a good option. And it's really interesting, actually, in my opinion, that the agents called out, the SharePoint and Azure Blob storage as an option for file and image storage as well. Dataverse is very expensive when it comes to file and image storage, so SharePoint excels at that. It's probably one of the few things I think we would probably recommend SharePoint for when it comes to this type of thing, actually, as is Blob storage, which is a more enterprise level example. Why don't we put the agent through its paces a bit more and go for something a bit more complex? So those demo scenarios, we could argue that maybe set up to, make things a bit simple, but why don't we pick a scenario and give it a bit more sweat over?
We can do that. And we can also be ambiguous with it as well. And we can see if it asks us questions about something. Do you have an idea in mind, Josh?
Well, let's try something completely random and hopefully something that might get it kind of thinking a little bit more. So let's say I am wanting to build a solution in SharePoint. It is to manage employee sensitive information. We expect the number of records to be in the hundreds of thousands, and for every record it needs to be permissioned or needs to have security applied to it, and users don't have premium and they would be updating and viewing the records periodically. We can see if that's any good.
Great scenario, Josh. Let me make sure I recommend the right thing before diving in. So we have some questions here. So question number 1 is, what do you mean by security applied to every record?
Yeah, this is really interesting, isn't it? It's actually telling us, I don't have enough information to give you the answer that you need. Let me ask some questions back and then I'll give you an answer. So the question 1 is asking what I mean by security. And I think based on what I was thinking in my head, I was thinking more about role-based access. Probably wasn't articulating it correctly. So that's really good. So let's go with C for that one and see what it comes back with.
And I like how it's telling us that this matters a lot because of SharePoint's row-level security not being native. So yeah, that could be an issue for us.
Mhm.
So Josh, sorry, but SharePoint is the wrong data store for this scenario.
But I thought SharePoint was the perfect data source for sensitive information and lots of records. Why am I wrong?
So our special agent is saying that SharePoint has no native row level security. Performance degrades sharply when you've got item level permissions at scale, which is something that I might not have thought about. And then role-based filtering in an app on top of SharePoint is possible, but then it gets enforced by an app if it's in a Canvas app, not the data layer. So yeah, that's not really very good. Wouldn't recommend that. So before I recommend a solution, one more question. What licenses do your users currently have?
Let's just say that our users have Microsoft 365 and Power App standards. And let's see what it comes back with.
Okay, so it's happy with that. So the problem with standard licenses is that you don't get Dataverse, of course. We were hoping that we could use Dataverse. Well, guess what? That's what you actually need. So the advisor is saying, why Dataverse? Because it's got native row level security and all of the other parts, like column level security can be really important, auditing being built in. So these are all really important things that you're not going to get with SharePoint. It's going to be able to scale to millions of records, and you can enforce the security on the data level instead of in the app. So it's recommending Dataverse as the data store, Canvas app for your user-facing app. So it's saying, why Canvas over model-driven here? And it's saying because Canvas gives you the ability to control the UI more easily. Now, one thing I wonder with this one is, why is it not saying to us, well, actually, you could use code apps for this? If I was looking at this, I think I would prefer to go for code apps. I can't see a reason to go for a Canvas app. Any ideas?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I don't know either. Particularly then if you're going for a premium license, it does open the doors for your code app. Yeah, I'd probably be inclined to push down that route personally, given that it would be more flexible and the UI is controllable as well.
So another prompt tweak for us there to make this even better. But it's working really nicely so far. It definitely gives you a lot to think about and will bring up things that you wouldn't necessarily think about. So some edge cases. So of course you need your back office app and for your HR admins to work on things. And it's suggesting a model driven app for that. I suppose if you're building it as a code app, you could combine the two together without too much difficulty. But yeah, maybe it's better to have that model driven app because you can get that up and running very quickly. And there's so much that's built into a model driven app by default.
Okay, so that's a really good example of the agent telling us that we shouldn't go the route that we were thinking, which is great. Should we try one more example and really try and put it through its paces? Charles, do you have anything in mind for this one?
Yeah, I do. For this one, I want to force it to not suggest something that's premium because I think that's a very common scenario.
Mhm.
So let's say that we want to build something that's used company wide. So we want to build a desk booking app. We cannot afford premium. So please do not suggest it. So of course it's coming back and asking us questions. So who'll be using the app? So 1 will be just internal employees. 2 will be, what licenses do you have? We just have Microsoft 365. We don't have anything special. So this is where the options get a bit tight, as we were probably expecting. So realistic options, Canvas app as standard. So this does mean using SharePoint as a backend. App builder we could use if we had Microsoft 365 Copilot. I'm not sure if I'd really be happy with that. If I don't really want to share an app builder app with the entire organization, maybe we need to tell our prompts that that's not really an ideal scenario. And there's basically saying that everything else is off the table. So we are stuck in the worst place with using a Canvas app with SharePoint.
Yeah, but it's good to see that this isn't geared towards trying to push people into the premium space.
So it's come back with a Canvas app and SharePoint, but one of the things that we regularly get asked is, well, why don't I just go the custom web app route? So let's ask our agent that. Why not just build a custom web app? It's a fair challenge, and here's an honest comparison. So why it might make sense is because there's no per seat license, but we're not going to get that with a Canvas app anyway, so I'm not too bothered about that. And no constraints. But why would we want to use a Canvas app instead? Well, it should be faster to build. I guess I would argue that it might not be faster to build, but it might be faster to build all of the complexities that you would have to build with a custom app.
There's a lot more platform considerations, isn't there, that we have to take into account as part of that decision. So I guess that's where it's getting at there.
Yeah. So then it starts talking about the maths, and I'm not sure why it's suggesting across there that we need to fix that in our prompt. I feel like this video is us constantly going, we need to fix that in our prompt, which we will do. But yeah, cost-wise, of course, it's going to cost a lot more for a custom web app. When does it genuinely win? So when you've got a dev team that can just get on with it, when you have lots of users and the license cost becomes significant, well, it's missing the point there because Canvas app is included in our license. If you need a highly branded pixel perfect experience that Canvas can't deliver, which I think is a really big win for things like custom web apps and code apps. And if you want zero Microsoft license dependency, which is something to think about as well.
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it, to see it just coming back and giving the arguments of both, so you can make an informed decision that feels, in my opinion, impartial. It's not trying to weight it to one or the other. It's just trying to give you the pros and cons, which I really like. Charles, anything else to add to that?
Yes. So as people can see, that this has some massive benefits for using an agent like this, but you also do need to be careful about what your prompt has within it. This is basically our alpha version of this. So we're obviously going to go away and fix those things that we've discovered today. This is our first test of it, our first proper test of it. So quite an exciting time for us as well. And the really cool thing about something like this is that it does come up with ideas that you won't have thought about, and potentially just helps you to solidify that you are thinking in the right way. So I hope you've found that interesting, and I hope it's given you some food for thought. What we're going to do is we're going to look at how we can make this available for people. Obviously, it's consuming API costs and things like that, so we have to consider the right way of dealing with this. But when we've improved this prompt a little bit more, it's going to be something that's extremely valuable. And no doubt we're going to be using it just to double check our thinking. So yeah, hope you enjoyed that. I'm interested to know in the comments what you thought of it and whether you have any questions or comments. That would be really interesting to know. And yeah, look forward to seeing you next time.